31, negative 8 sine of theta plus 5 pi over 3 equals 4 square roots of 2. Divide by negative 8, sine of theta plus 5 pi over 3 equals 4 square roots of 2 over negative 8, which is going to be negative square root of 2 over 2. So I'm looking for where the sine is the negative square root of 2 over 2. So I'm going to look at my unit circle again. I know that my unit circle is horribly drawn, but hopefully you have one. So where is the sine negative 1/2? It's going to be negative 1/2 right here, and it's going to be negative 1/2 right here. This one is 7 pi over 6. Is that right? 6, 6, 7, 6. Yeah, that's 7, 6, and that's 11, 6. So it's going to be theta plus 5 pi over 3 equals 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. And then I'm going to have to subtract the 5 pi over 3, which I'm going to make it a common denominator. So I'm going to really make it 7 pi over 6 minus 10 pi over 6, which is going to be negative 3 pi over 6, which is going to be negative pi over 2. Do the same thing here. 11 pi over 6 minus 10 pi over 6 is pi over 6. So those are my two answers. 32, I'm going to have to start reusing some paper, which is going to make it hard to see, but we'll be all right. 1 equals 1 plus the cotangent of theta plus pi over 3. I'm going to subtract 1. Cotangent of 0, so it's really going to be where the tangent is undefined, because I'm going to flip it. Tangent of this equals undefined. And I already found those on my unit circle was pi over 2. And 3 pi over 2. So I'm going to subtract that. Subtract the pi over 3. Get a common denominator. So this is going to be 3 pi over 6. And this is going to be 2 pi over 6. Equals pi over 6. Do the same thing here. So 3 pi over 2 minus pi over 3 is going to be 9 pi over 6 minus 2 pi over 6. 7 pi over 6. So those are my two answers. That was 32. So 33. 9 plus the square root of 3 over 3 equals 3 minus 2 thirds times the cosine theta plus 3 pi over 4. Oh, fun. Okay. So I'm going to subtract 3. 9 over 3 is really 3. So it's going to be the square root of 3 over 3 equals negative 2 thirds times the cosine of theta plus 3 pi over 4. I'm going to multiply by negative 3 over 2, which is going to give me negative square root of 3 over 2 equals cosine of pi plus 3 pi over 4. Sorry, theta plus 3 pi over 4. So where is the cosine negative? That on my unit circle. Cosine is negative square root of 3 over 2 right here and right here. So this one is 5 pi over 6, and this one's 7 pi over 6. Five pi over 6 and 7 pi over 6. So I'm going to make this 12ths, so they're a common denominator. So this is going to be 9 pi over 12. This is going to be 10 pi over 12. And this is going to be 14 pi over 12. So I'm going to subtract this, So 10 minus 9 is pi over 12. I'm going to subtract it again. For this one is 5 pi over 12. And that's my answer. 33. Try to go fast so that I don't have to do another video. 5 equals negative 3 minus 4 cosecant of theta plus pi. I'm going to add the 3, so that's 8 equals this. I'm going to divide by negative 4. So that's going to be negative 2 equals the cosecant of theta plus pi, which means negative 1/2 equals the sine of theta plus pi. On my unit circle, that's going to be negative 1/2 is going to be at 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. So I'm going to subtract the pi from this, is going to be pi over 6, and this is going to be 5 pi over 6, which is my answer. That was number 34. So I'm going to do 35. Negative 3, can't see it, equals negative 5 minus 4 sine of negative theta plus 2 pi over 3. So I'm going to add the 5 is going to give me 2, and divide by negative 4 is going to give negative 1/2 equals the sine of negative theta plus 2 pi over 3. Just did negative 1/2 on the sine. It was 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. I'm going to subtract 2 pi over 3, which is 4 pi over 6. It's going to be 3 pi over 6 and 7 pi over 6. So that's going to give me, that's just pi, and that's 7 pi over 6. And it's negative theta, so I'm going to make both of these negative, and that's my answer. And that was 35, so now 36. Last one, here we go. Negative 2 plus 4 secant of negative 4 theta plus 7 pi over 6 equals 0. I'm going to add the 2 and divide by 4, so it's going to be secant negative 2 theta plus 7 pi over 6 equals 1/2. So then it's going to be cosine of negative 2 theta plus 7 pi over 6 equals 2. I don't have anywhere where the cosine equals 2, so this is going to be no solution. So I'm going to put empty Batmans. And that's it.